Hi, everyone. Good evening. It's CricketSong with Lunar Wisdom, and you're watching another episode of Wyrds, Witches, and Witchcraft. Tonight, I do not have Obsidian Fire with me. Unfortunately, she has some personal business that needed to be attended to last night for her. So she was not going to be able to make it this morning for her because in France, it's Saturday morning that we're broadcasting early in the morning. So she will not be with us. And tonight there was a mix up with my scheduling, and I do not have a guest for tonight. So guess what? It's just me. You have me, and only me this evening. So if you're in chat, I want to say hello to my wonderful, wonderful Xavier Rose. And I see Lorenza is there in chat as well so far. So hello to you both. So tonight I had a topic I just wanted to sort of talk about. And if you have some questions or comments pertaining to the topic, or just about witchcraft and magic in general, please feel free to share them in the chat, and I will answer as many as I can this evening. But I kind of wanted to just start the show with a topic that was brought up, or kind of it's a topic I wanted to discuss or at least share my thoughts with you. I considered doing a video, but then realized I would just, if I ever got the opportunity to really talk about it, I would do it. And here's a perfect opportunity. So what I wanted to talk about is I had someone email me a couple of weeks ago, or maybe, a couple of weeks ago when I was finally got to respond to them last week. And basically, the email that I got really was asking me a question about a situation that they were in. And it basically was the idea that they wanted to know if there was a spell that could be cast on behalf of a friend of theirs. And it was a very specific situation. And they didn't know if this individual or this spell actually could be cast. Not because, so let me see if I can read. I'm going to share with you the email without talking about the actual person. I'm not going to name names. And I'm actually going to switch up the situation a little bit. So basically, here it is. Some time ago, a friend of mine was a salesman at a car dealership, and she was wrongfully fired from the dealership after she was told that she was going to have this position for at least 3 to 6 months. The owner of the car dealership at the time was responsible personally for my friend's termination from this dealership. I know the name of the person who did this to my friend, and I was wondering if there's a spell I could put on the owner. Is there such a spell? So in this whole idea, I wanted to just discuss the idea. So my response to this and my feeling and my beliefs about it is there is a spell for everything, for anything, any situation you can think of. There's a spell that can be written for that. And that really, though, isn't the question. The question isn't, is there a spell that can be done for, in this case, this this friend's position within this car dealership? That isn't really the point, I think. That isn't really the question. The question is whether or not this individual or any individual can cast a successful spell. That's really the situation or the thing that we should be looking at. Anybody can write a spell for anything. You can bring up correspondences that can be boiled down to fit the intention. The question is whether you or whoever, the individual considering casting the spell, has the ability, has the personal power, has the belief, has the skill to cast the successful spell. And this all starts with understanding ourselves, us as witch, understanding what our beliefs are, understanding our sources of power, understanding magic, how magic works, understanding what is our thoughts, what are we influenced by, how are we feeling in this moment, how are we feeling about things in general. Do you know yourself well enough? Do you know your craft well enough to be able to cast a successful spell, to be able to manipulate the energies that need to be manipulated in order to successfully manifest an outcome? That is really the question. That is where the craft begins with the individual witch. And that is where this individual that emailed me needs to look at it if they are considering casting the spell. Or if they're considering hiring someone to do it for them, then my question would be, does that person who is going to cast the spell for your friend know themselves enough to be able to do such a thing? Because sometimes people can cast a spell for themselves, but when it comes to the point where they're going to cast a spell on behalf of someone else, it gets a little tricky, doesn't it? I mean, it really, now we not only have to consider ourselves and what we're capable of and how we're feeling and the energies we're dealing with, we have to take into consideration the individual that we're going to cast the spell for. And that's when things can get a little complicated. If that individual that we're casting a spell on their behalf isn't really honest with what they want or what their intention is, if they're unsure, if they have ambivalent feelings about the situation, it's going to affect the outcome of the spell. Because ideally, if you're casting a spell on someone's behalf, you want to be aligned with that person's intention. I mean, that's the easiest way to cast spells. Having your intention and your beliefs and your feelings and your energy aligned with who you're doing magic for, because then you have two people whose energy and vibration are aligned and matched. And then that can build the momentum that can propel a spell towards manifestation. But if the caster is not aligned or is not sort of vibrationally matched with the person they're looking to cast for, if there's some sort of contention, that, you know, it's going to affect the energy. It's going to affect the outcome. Because if I'm casting a spell on behalf of this person and I truly believe in the intention, I've written the spell, I've crafted the spell, it's a spell I've made, and I've been doing all the energetic work for it, and the individual I'm casting for has told me that they want XYZ, but somewhere in their heart they don't believe they're worthy of XYZ, then no matter how much or how strong my energy is, or the greatest momentum that I've built up, if this person is doubting it, it's going to sort of cloud the waters that my spell is going to propel forward towards. And it may still manifest, but it would manifest better, easier, quicker, more successfully if that person that I'm casting for is also in alignment with the intention and the outcome. So the question isn't really, is there a spell for this? Is there a spell for that? Is there a spell for this? Yes, there's a spell for anything. A spell can be made for anything, but can the caster successfully cast that spell towards manifestation is what should be asked. So let's see, wouldn't that be sympathetic magic? This whole idea, I'm sorry, Xavier, I didn't see that I didn't see that question while I was talking because I wasn't looking at the chat. How can I protect myself when I go and help a lady with what looks like a residual black mist energy in her home? What's the best form of spell work and herbs to help her, please? Okay, well, first of all, I would suggest finding out the origin of the black mist energy in her home. I mean, finding the origin of that and however way you would determine what that is, whether you do a divination, whether you do a meditation, whether you go into do trance, whether you do some sort of journeying to determine what that black mist is. However you go about determining what that black mist is, it's going to be important for you to figure out what it is first before you can successfully protect yourself against it. I mean, unless you just do a general overall protection or shielding that will keep anything that isn't aligned with your true intention, your true will away from you, you could do that. But I would suggest determining what that is so that then you know how to sort of protect yourself from that. It's sort of like, someone is sick with something. You can just give them an overall generic antibiotic, but it would better to determine what is causing this sickness in order to better, protect them from it than just do a generic one. It's always, in my belief, in my opinion, it's always better to sort of counteract something when you know what it is that you're counteracting. You get a better result from it. Best form of spell work and herbs to help her, I guess, is help her with what? If there is some sort of stagnant energy in her home, then you want to do a cleansing of her home first. But again, finding the origin of why it's there to begin with. If she is the cause of this stagnant, misty energy, then no matter how much cleaning you do, it's going to return. It's still going to come back if she is sort of drawing it into her place or if she is allowing someone to bring it in with them. Of course, there's a spell, but let the universe handle it. You can, I mean, and this sort of goes to the idea of if we're witches and we practice our craft, if I feel motivated to help someone with something, then why shouldn't I help them with something? I mean, we have this ability to do things. Sometimes I think, and this is, I mean, I can't be the judge of someone, well, I could, but I will not be the judge of someone else's situation. If you as witch decide that you want to help someone, I'm not going to tell you shouldn't. You know the situation better than I do. Unless, of course, I know the person too, and I know the situation, and this person you want to help is a friend of ours or a family member of ours, then of course I'll have an opinion about that. But in general, I do my best not to judge another person's situation. So, like, for example, if my son is in a situation and I feel, and he's talked to me about the situation, and I feel motivated to help him, and he says that, yes, he would love my help in a magical way, then I'm going to do what I can to help him if I feel motivated to and he wants me to. I'm not going to let the universe handle it. I'm going to do something about it. It's just my opinion, of course. Know thyself. Yes, know thyself. This is why I don't perform spells for friends or with friends when they ask me. I don't know what they feel, and people lie. People do lie. People can deceive to see what they want and lie to themselves. They do. I mean, and you and I are not what's the word? Are not free from doing this as well. I lie to myself. I know I do. And I'm sure, Xavier, you lie to yourself sometimes too. I mean, I think sometimes there are things in our lives that happen or situations that are just too painful or we're too afraid to address, that we can lie to ourselves. And I think lying to ourselves, or denying things or not seeing things, being blind to things that either are happening within us, whether they're feelings or thoughts, are a form of sort of self-deception. But but again, meditation and contemplation and working through our own shit will definitely help us lie to ourselves less and less. It will help us be strong enough and be brave enough to face the things that we don't want to face, to work through the pain, work through the internal suffering that we may be going through, in order to be able to understand more about ourselves and to see ourselves clearer than what we do. And of course, all this work is going to help us within our craft that much better, and it's going to make us be stronger and be more skillful and have more of our spells and magical workings manifest quicker and more powerfully, if we can truly be honest and open with ourselves. Meditation works well. What if I can't through meditation? What if you can't identify the origin of that black mist through meditation? Other ways, divination might be helpful if you use a certain tool or a way to divine, communing with whatever spiritual entities or deities or gods or whatever that you work with. Maybe they can give you some clarity as what the origin of this black mist is. And if all else fails, then a basic shielding or warding of yourself when you go into the the environment would be helpful. But I wouldn't give up on trying to identify what that is, because there is something. If you're seeing it, if you're experiencing it, then there's a way to find the origin of that, and I wouldn't give up on that. I would do divination to see if a spell is required. After that, said what would take place if she did cast it, then see how it would play out without the spell. I love how it's just 12. It's like a cozy little group chat. Where do you see the number of people in chat? I cannot see that, Xavier. I cannot see that. Feeling more positive. Being there, I would definitely find out more. Hey. If karma is this entity or energy, and there's 7B people in the world, wouldn't karma be extremely busy? Poor karma, we owe her a box of chocolates. She's not a family member. I agree with your position on this person's situation, but I know her well. It's human nature. You're welcome. Use tarot. The Green Witch Tarot. I like that deck. Use the tarot to see if you can identify what this mist is, and see if you can find the origin of it. And I mean, how I would do it personally is I would meditate and open myself up to the spiritual entities that I work with in the meditation, and ask them to give me some clue or some insight into what this black mist is. Then when I have that information from that meditation, I would then do divination, sort of sort it through and get more of an understanding of the origin of the black mist. And then using that information, create some sort of shield for myself before I go into the environment. That's what I would do. That's what I would do. So, questions, comments? I mean, because I don't have a guest and because I don't have obsidian, I'm sort of at a loss here tonight, everyone. I definitely wanted to talk about that whole idea about the spell. Is there a specific spell? But other than that, I didn't really have too much to talk about, which is why I didn't do a whole video on that topic alone, because that video would have been super short, boring. Yeah. Anything else? Anything else? Xavier, I use Ouija boards, but it's really me asking myself what I need to know. Yeah, that's what Ouija boards can give you information. It's definitely a divination tool. I have one. I had two, but when I moved, I only took one with me. This topic makes me think about your Facebook post on personal gain. I didn't comment on the post, but it saddens me. We could always talk about Becky from Whole Foods. Oh my God. Yeah, the topic about personal gain, it goes around, it goes around, it goes around, then it leaves and then it comes back. I mean, it definitely is a part of that. And that's probably why it made me think of it even more. I mean, as I see it, we're witches. When you identify as a witch, it's something you are. You once you remember or you awaken, however you term the idea of recognizing that you are a witch and you're able to manipulate energies for an outcome. I really, honestly, at least for me, if I'm able to do this, if I'm able to manipulate energies for an outcome, then it's available to me. I'm going to use it. I mean, it's a tool that's available to me. And if, I definitely believe that if I live somewhere and they have laws that are in place, and I agree to live in that place, then I agree to the laws of the land. I understand that here in the United States, if I go get up from my chair here and I cross the street, enter my neighbor's home, and I kill her, I understand that that is breaking a few laws, trespassing and murder, and there are set consequences for that type of behavior. And I shouldn't be surprised when I'm arrested and I'm tried for breaking or trespassing, breaking and entering, and assault or murder, or however it plays out. I should understand that, I've done this and I should expect retribution or punishment for breaking the laws that I have agreed to by living here. Just because I can stand up and walk into her house and murder her doesn't mean I should do that. But I have the power and I have the ability to do so. So I can make that choice to do that. I definitely can make that choice. I am, sovereign of me. I'm quite able and capable to do that. And I feel like it's the same with magic or witchcraft. I am capable of manipulating the energies to attain a specific outcome. If I decide to do it in certain ways that would affect change not only in my life, but in other people's lives, I should take responsibility for that and be aware that there are going to be consequences to my actions. I guess when it comes down to personal gain, I look at personal gain as anything that benefits me in any way, shape, or form. I don't think personal gain is in and of itself a bad thing. I think personal gain is when I do X, it gives me some sort of benefit, whether it makes me feel good or whether it grants me privileges or possessions. I am still getting a benefit from that. And I think sometimes, when we're acting in altruistic ways where we're doing something for someone else without really considering what it's going to do for us, if we feel good when we do it, that's still a personal gain from my perspective. And again, I don't think that's bad. So as a witch, when I hear people say you shouldn't use magic for personal gain, I question, what do you mean by personal gain? Because if you're saying I shouldn't do magic so I get more money, more wealth, or more power, I don't see a problem with that. in and of itself, but I guess I would need to know more of a situation. If I'm going to gain power and wealth and privilege because I went across the street and murdered my neighbor, that's different than gaining money, power, and privilege through my own hard work and my own effort. They're both money, power, and privilege, but they're attained two different ways. And I guess that's what I need to know more about, the context of how it's done. I feel that the concept against personal gain is foolish and simply comes from TV. I can't find it anywhere in magical teachings. Magic helped me to make my own life better than it was. Why don't we talk about the solstice approaching, traditions and whatnot? I wrote and published a blog post about personal gain and response. You need to send me a link about that, Shadow Sun. I go to work every day for personal gain. How would magic be something different? Exactly. Spiritual journey is in itself meant for our own personal gain, right? How can you help someone else if you can't help yourself? I'm relating it to the person's question from your email. How can you help someone if you can't help yourself? Right. I mean, this individual, we went back and forth in the email about different things, and I gave my thoughts on it. But I don't think that unless you're suggesting that the person that they were going to help in the example was the friend who was working at the car dealership, and they were promised the job that would last 3 to 6 months, but they were fired before that 3 to 6 month term was up. I don't think that person couldn't help themselves. I think they were in the mundane, doing things to keep that job. They were selling cars, they were making sales and whatever, showing up for their scheduled time, but they were not a magical practitioner. So I think the person who was emailing me did practice magic and did identify as witch, and they wanted to know if they could do something to help their friend who was the Cowan. So, I mean, that person, the Cowan, was doing what they could to help themselves. They just weren't magically inclined. Doesn't mean that we shouldn't help people, but we should all strive to better ourselves too. I agree. Right, I definitely agree with helping others. The thing is, how can you help someone if you have no personal experience to back up to know if it's going to work? Right. I mean, I don't know. And we didn't really get into the emailers' personal practice, how long they've practiced, how successful they were. We didn't get into that. But I was trying to point out to that individual that it wasn't about a specific spell, but the specific spell caster. And I think I got this person to understand what I was trying to point out. They were trying to point out that they weren't discussing a curse. I don't know if they thought I was thinking that they were going to do a curse. It didn't matter to me either way. I mean, even if you're going to curse, are you able to do that? Do you have the understanding, the knowledge, and the skill and the ability to do that? That's the question, not the actual spell. Why is it horrible to want to better your own life? Everyone can do it. I can't get out of this town. The bus runs every day, dude. Oh, no, yeah, I agree with you. I don't know. I think maybe when we hear the term, you shouldn't do magic for personal gain, I think the idea is that you're trumping someone else in order to get what you want. But when it's the term personal gain that I have an issue with, that very broad term, because like I said, there's one way to gain things for yourself in a destructive and callous and uncompassionate way. And then there is a way to gain stuff for yourself personally with compassion, with a gentle touch, with understanding of the consequences. I think that's the issue. Although I would then go back around and suggest that who am I to judge how you get what you need to get? The only time it's really going to directly affect me is if you're doing something against me. But even in that situation, sometimes I feel we need challenges and obstacles to become a better version of ourselves. And sometimes having that resistance can create a greater growth within me. So for an example, what do I mean by this is, so say Becky, Witch Becky, is casting a spell because her and I are going out for this one job opening at Whole Foods. They're looking for a cashier, and I need a job. I need a part-time job, and Becky needs a part-time job. And we both saw this job opening at Whole Foods, and we both apply for the position, and we both start to do magic for the position. She's casting a spell to make herself be more appealing to the person who's going to look at her application and who's going to interview her. And I'm going to do a spell directly casting against her, doing it so that nobody else will get the job, and I leave it open just for me, that everybody else isn't going to do well, just me. So we're approaching this situation in two different ways. But I feel sometimes knowing that someone else is doing magic against me, or maybe it's switched. Maybe she's doing magic so I won't get the job, and I'm doing magic to make myself appeal better, to be the better, more appealing applicant. I sometimes feel like having someone do magic like against me will make me a better witch, because sometimes I need that resistance. I need the challenge to grow. And I think sometimes we as witches do need it. Sometimes we become complacent in our magic. Sometimes maybe we find that we have a spell that works for us all the time, and we become stagnant because we know these specific spells always work, and we become sort of lazy, and we become complacent, and we don't look for new ways, or we don't look for a challenge. And I think when life gives us these challenges, or gives us these obstacles, or brings resistance and places it in front of us, we are then able to, exert ourselves, put more effort, put more attention, and we're able to grow. And that's, when our magics grow and our power grows, and we become a greater expansion, a better version of who we were before. So I sometimes think that that's a helpful thing to encounter. Yes, witches do not take a vow of poverty. I agree. Everything is personal gain. This personal gains come from the show Charmed. I know it does. Is someone charmed? Aren't we all charmed? Aren't we all charmed, though? Cast the spell and see what happens. Yep. Because I got a job from a list of other candidates. Obviously, I was what they were looking for. I don't feel bad. I feel good about myself. Becky wasn't trying hard enough. True story. Right, leave it to the universe. Hand it to decisive if it's the right thing. Right, it's meant to happen regardless of magic. It totally did, Nikolai, and it saddens me that rather than looking to oneself and looking to teachings, people allow media to influence a viewpoint. It's silly. Everything is connected. You can't separate yourself from riches or material gain. Right. I, as a teacher, took a vow of poverty. You did? Teachers take a vow of poverty? That's insane. Anthony. Hello, Anthony Martinez. Blessed be. Happy Friday. Enjoy your weekend. Thank you. Yes, it's Friday. I have about 25 minutes left. Does anybody else want to, do they have a question? Do you have a thought? Do you want my opinion about everything? Hello, Rhonda. Nikolai. We as a race are brainwashed into thinking that money and riches is a bad thing. I know, right? I don't think money and riches are a bad thing. I think that people look to money and riches and think that it's going to bring them happiness. They think that if they had all this money and they had, fame or power or riches or whatever, wealth, they think it's going to make them happy. It thinks it's going, but it's not going to bring happiness. It will bring possessions. It may allow you to buy certain experiences, but happiness cannot, and this is going to sound so cliche, but happiness cannot be found outside of yourself. It's only found within yourself. These things, this money may help you find different avenues for different experiences, but the feeling of those experiences originate within yourself. If you're not a happy person, that's not going to change until you determine why you're not happy to begin with. These other things, this money is going to bring you a distraction, and you're going to maybe feel better or feel joy or feel happy as you're distracted, but you're only being distracted. You're actually not addressing the internal issue that is keeping you away from happiness. I would love to see more love spells. Oh, there's a love spell coming up. There's a love spell, at least on my channel in Practical Witchcraft. Or did one just show up? Did the love spell show up yet? I think I have a love spell showing. I know I have a love spell showing up if it isn't already up. I don't remember what episode it is. I have a question. Just let me type it. Okay, Xavier. Do you still use a Book of Shadows? Actually, I don't call it a Book of Shadows anymore. And if you go to my website, www.lunarwisdom.net, I have a tab at the top called the Grimoire. And the Grimoire is going to have all the spells that I'm doing in the Practical Witchcraft series, like the ingredients that I used and the steps that I took. And then there's a video. The video of the episode is there, and then the spell is underneath it. But it's a very basic spell, like an outline of the spell. Because again, I want you to, when you're watching this series, to take my stuff as an inspiration, and for you to sort of cater the spell to work best for you, which might mean changing the correspondences, using something a little different. But all that information is going to be there. I personally I don't do a lot of, I don't put like a journaling stuff in my grimoire. It's basically like a recipe book. But that's what I use, because my own craft is changing from when I was Wiccan to what I'm doing now. It's different. Money does not make people, I don't believe money makes people happy. Like I said, money is a distraction. Money allows you to purchase possessions and purchase experiences or to pay your bills. But that in itself doesn't bring happiness. That will bring comfortability. It will ease stress. It will bring you possessions. But if people were to look, if you're an unhappy person, and if you look inside and say, why am I unhappy? The surface answer may be because I don't have money. but what is it that you need the money for? And if you're to say, well, I need money to pay my rent and I'm unhappy because I can't pay my rent, that's the surface. But when you dig deeper, I have known people who have lived in their car. They had no home. They barely made enough money to make enough money to feed themselves. They couldn't live in an apartment. They were living in their car, but they were truly happy people, because it really depends on what your focus is. I mean, if you're a person who is focused on possessions and you don't have possessions, then maybe you are unhappy. But my question for you would be, why do you feel the need to have those possessions? Because happiness is an emotion. It is a non-physical thing. Physical things do not make a non-physical thing. Do you know what I'm saying? I don't know if I'm explaining it right. Um, it just doesn't work that way. I don't tell my colleague my religion, but it comes up a lot at work. That in politics, how do I answer the question without lying? And I don't want to lie to them, just be private. It comes up. Okay. So I guess, Xavier, how does the conversation start? Like, how does it come about? How does it come up? How does the religion, do they outright ask you what religion you are? I would love to see a friend spell. What do you mean by a friend spell? Nikolai, what do you mean by a friend spell? Someone made a video talking about how making wishes or doing magic sets up spiritual contracts and the bill will come due. It confused me. He quoted Practical Magic. Someone made a video. Okay, so they're saying that when I make a wish, it makes a spiritual contract. I would ask, it makes a spiritual contract with who? If I'm casting a spell or making a wish, well, if I'm making a wish, who am I directing the wish to? Like, who am I making this contract with? Because if I'm making a wish or I'm asking a god or goddess to, if I'm petitioning, if I'm looking at making a wish as a petition, that would mean that I'm then asking a specific person or entity to make this happen for me. And I can see how there might be a contract there, equivalent exchange. If I make a wish for God to bring me a boyfriend or a lover, then I have I owe God if God's going to manifest that for me. So I would suggest that it would depend on who you are sort of petitioning. Because when I do my magical working, I evoke the spiritual, entities that I work with, but I also give an offering at the end, or I actually give an offering quite frequently because I have a working relationship with the spirits that I work with. So it's an ongoing relationship, like with, my friends or, with my husband, it's an ongoing relationship. So there is an understanding that there is a give and take there. So I already have like contracts or pacts. I actually took a vow and made a pact with specific spiritual entities. So there is already that established for me. So I guess it would depend on the individual making the wish or doing the magical workings. You would have to talk to them as to who they work with. I mean, the idea of having a matron or patron suggests that there already is, they're a devotee or a follower of a specific god or goddess. So there is sort of this pact if they make one, but I think there is something understood between them too. It's a relationship. Did you join a coven where you did you join a coven? Where I live now, I have not joined a coven. I will not join a coven here. I'm completely solitary. I work on my own. My husband doesn't even work magically with me anymore. I'm completely solitary, and it's going to stay that way for a while. Oh, Raven, Raven. You can't practice magic while you look down your nose at it. So he was saying to know what you're doing, but setting up spiritual contracts that will take something from you. So, I mean, like I said, I think a spiritual contract or a working relationship is how I look at it. I mean, I did a whole sort of, when I established my relationship with my familiar spirit and my beloved dead and the ancestors, there was sort of this promise or this vow I made. And in that, there was like these promises I made, sort of like being in service to these entities. And there was a set, it's like a marriage, it's like a handfasting, it's like a binding was done between me and these entities. Nothing is really taken from me. I give of myself, knowing that in turn things will be given to me. You know, it's like when you marry somebody or when you establish a relationship with somebody, it's giving yourself freely to this person or these spiritual entities, knowing, trusting that energy will be returned. And I feel like those are the strongest bonds that you can have. But nothing is taken from me. I freely give because I know I'm going to get back. Do you know what I mean? Oh my God, your grimoire is so inspirational. Oh, yay. Okay. I would like to see a spell to get new friends to come to you. Okay. I don't know if I have one set up. I'll have to look at the list. If you actually go to my website, and you look on the left, if you click on grimoire, then it says spells, and there's a list on the left-hand side of 30 something spells, I believe. Those are all the spells that you're going to see in the Practical Witchcraft series. So I don't know if there's friendships listed there. If there's not, I will see if I can make it a video in the future. Well, it's more so joking about religion. And then they ask what religion I grew up in and what do I believe now as the outcome. Oh, I see what you mean. Okay, so they're joking, ha 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 ha. And then they're like, so Xavier, what religion did you grow up in? So if you're comfortable letting them know what religion you grew up in, you could tell them that. And what do you believe now as the outcome? You can be really vague. You can say something, well, and I would say be as vague as you can, but be honest. So for me, I would tell them, well, I grew up in a Roman Catholic household, or I grew up in a Christian household. And, through those experiences, I still believe there's a creator, and I still believe that there is some sort of divine energy or deity or entity. Other than that, I'm not so sure what I believe in. And I feel like my beliefs are still changing as I experience new things. I know I will not go back to the religion I grew up in because there's just this bad taste in my mouth, but I'm pretty open-minded, and I'm not convinced there is one true religion. I'd be very vague like that. That's not lying either. He was cryptic about his Tibetan training and spirit being. Yeah, I figured they were, per Bugaloo. Oh, you're welcome for looking at your questions. You're welcome. And I try to answer if I see you ask questions on videos too. I only did an oath to my matron or patron after I had worked with them for a while. I prefer to do it that way. And that makes sense, Raven. I mean, when I was working with a specific matron or patron, I didn't do specific spell crafting with them when I first, when it was Bast, then it was Isis and Thoth and Anubis, and then Danu and Cernunnos. I did a lot of meditative and trance work with them first and journeying, work like that, and energy healing when I was Reiki certified. I worked with them during those things. After doing that for a while, then there was this formal sort of ritual that I did creating this vow. It was a little different when I started working with my beloved dead, though, because my beloved dead, and I define them as people that I knew in life who still work with me after their transition, because I already knew who they were. As soon as they made themselves known and they agreed to work with me, the vow was like done right then, and it's still holding, because I knew them in life. So I'm saving up for cosmetic surgery, and I would like to hear what you think about using witchcraft in helping or getting the right outcome. What do you think? Well, if you're looking for cosmetic surgery, I would definitely, I think witchcraft can definitely help in healing. Clearly. I mean, from things like actual ointments and oils to energetic healing. I definitely, and personal energy healing on yourself. If you're familiar with Reiki, you could definitely get Reiki healing, sound healing, crystal healing, any kind of healing modality that you are aligned with, that you personally believe in and are invested in, is going to be helpful. Personal work, working through your own shit, your internal wounds are going to be just as important for you to heal from, because I believe everything that is happening internally is manifested physically. So if you have some deep wounds that are not healed, you're going to find that any external physical wounds are going to take longer to heal too. So if you're going for any kind of surgery, cosmetic or any kind of surgery, and it's tied to in some way to those emotional or psychic or spiritual wounds that you have, those wounds are going to take longer to heal. So any kind of work that you do is going to be helpful. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, it's not lying. If you say, I would stay vague, but truthful, and look for the commonality. I'm such a fan of glamoring. And I know I've talked about this before. I think I talked about it when I did the get to know your wishes, hashtag get to know your witches with Obsidian. I think that was last week. I really like glamoring. I like people to be surprised when they find out certain things about me, that they have this one belief about who and what I am. And then when they find out the truth, it's like a twist. I like those things. So, when people because I look for commonality, I look for ways to blend in, but I know that I don't. Do you know what I mean? I don't know. Sometimes it keeps me very isolated in doing that. But I guess deep down in my heart of hearts, I just know I don't blend in, and I know I just don't fit in. I guess there's some part of me that doesn't want to fit in. No, I don't. I really don't want to fit in. but I guess part of, it's that two different parts of the one person, a side of you that wants to fit in, but a side of you that doesn't want to be like everyone else either. Do you know? I don't know if you get what I mean. Looking to getting a special nose that I've seen on some man who is an actor, and I'm going to use witchcraft to help guide the doctor. Okay. If that's what you want to do, then go for it. I mean, who people may tell you don't do it, but who are they to tell you what you should or shouldn't do? I don't know. Just watching this video of your family finding the old bottle of Coca-Cola. Isn't that disgusting? Isn't that disgusting? Oh, it was so gross. Yeah, that is my husband, my son. Look how young he is in that video. And my nephew. It's my nephew, Christopher, he's the one. It's my husband, Christopher, and my son. It is disgusting. That video was taken in what, 2010, I think. That's like 9 years ago. Yeah. 9 years ago. So my son is 21 now. So 9 years ago, that would make him, what would that make him, 12? Looking into exploring trance again in terms of spirit communication and mediumship. Any tips or suggestions? I'm a big fan of trance. A big fan of trance, Paulina. And I can fall into trance so easily. Tips or suggestions? For me, those binaural beats work wonderful for me. I think I heard you talk about it and how they work really good for you. Hollow Sync, HOLOSYNC, sync, Hollow Sync, has great guided not guided meditation, but they have these meditations. I think one of them is called The Dive and another one is Submerge or something like that. They use nature sounds, gongs, bells, and the binaural beats. If you've never used the Hollow Sync, if you can find it somewhere, I think you can find them on YouTube. I would try them. They are amazing. I would definitely try those if you haven't. Yeah, finding that one thing that really gets you into the trance, I think is going to be helpful. Making sure you're grounded before you go into trance is helpful as well. And having some sort of key. So what I mean by that is once you get into your routine of going into trance for your mediumship, or for journeying or whatever you're going to be doing it for, having a key that then can trigger you. So then you don't always need to have the sound, so that anytime you just touch the key, now it can be a physical key or it can be something else. Like it can be a stone or it can be a crystal or it can be some kind of a pendant or a little figurine or something. And you sort of program that to be your key for that specific thing. So what I mean by that, I think I'm being too vague. So for example, I have this little Pikachu, figurine. And I'm going to use the binaural beat music to go into trance. So I would be holding this little Pikachu. Whoops, I just dropped him. Holding this little Pikachu figurine. I'm going to go into trance using the Hollow Sync sound, listening to it while I'm holding Pikachu. So then I'm going to start associating that music, that sound with Pikachu. So then if I keep doing that, and I'm going to say that this trance is going to help me with my mediumship. I'm going to go do trance mediumship. So every time I listen to the binaural beats with the Hollow Sync holding Pikachu, I go in with the intention that I'm going into trance with mediumship. And I keep doing that. So eventually Every time I pick up Pikachu, I won't need the binaural beats to go into trance for mediumship. It'll automatically happen because I've trained myself to associate this key, Pikachu, with that action. Do you know what I mean? That is helpful if you're going to be doing that and using that on a regular basis, Paulina. This has been a great chat. Yes, and we're at time. I've always wanted more info on glamoring. We can cover that during one of our circles, Paulina, if you want, or you and I can just meet up and talk more one-on-one about glamoring if you want at a future time. If you follow this link, you'll see a great video called The Real Witch Project, where as a group on non-witches join to form a covenant. It really is a good movie. It's called The Real Witch Project, and YouTube won't let me type the whole address, and it was the last address to the video. Part 1 is really good. All right, I could just check it out. I can check out The Real Witch Project. Thank you, Nikolai, for sharing that. So it's 9:31 now, so it's time to end. The time went by really quick. I hope you guys get some wonderful information about this. Next week, June 7th, Aaron will be on the show for sure. Honest. That's the day he's scheduled. We're going to be talking about tarot. We're not doing readings, but we're going to be talking about tarot that night. So hopefully you all tune in for that. If you're watching this on the recorded thing, I hope you found this information to be interesting. And as always, everyone, I love you. Everybody in chat, you are wonderful. Raven, Xavier, Shadow Sun, Nikolai, Rhonda, Per Bugaloo. I think that was everybody. Anybody else was in here chit-chatting? Danny Boy, Rhonda, I already said. Lorenza, Anthony, thank you all. I love you. Until next week. Mwah. Blessed be.